All right, guys, just going to wait for this audio to kick in, and then we will get started here. All right, let's see what's going on here. We got 11 people waiting. That's fantastic. Let me just make sure the audio is coming through, and then we will get started, and we'll talk about this fun effect in Blender. I'll have it playing in the background while we are waiting for everybody. All right, audio looks good. We are good to go. Let me go ahead and zoom in on the comments so I can see those. Awesome. Okay. All right, guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about this kind of expansion effect. Now, this is a really cool effect. As you guys can see here, it looks really awesome. Super excited to cover it. It's all geometry nodes. We're going to have a good time here in Blender today. Let me show you what this looks like in solid view. It's a little smoother, be able to kind of see what's going on here. Just turn on the overlays. So basically the way this effect works in short is we are basically using simulation nodes with combination of math and certain primitives that basically expand points outwards and then connect them into curves. It's pretty simple at a base level, but it's also really, really fun. So let me just show you like kind of how it works. Like as you zoom out, you can kind of see how it expands out here. I'll just press pause real quick. You can kind of see we have these strands or these curves, and I can actually change, and I'll show you, we're gonna do all of this together. We can actually change the type that it is. Right now it's a sphere. If we change it to a cube, I just want to show you what that looks like. This is a cube. Again, same process. We're expanding points outwards. My favorite one though is the plane or the grid. Check this one out. This one I just think is really cool because you can really see the noise texture that's animated here. And what's awesome is you can also adjust the density, the amount of lines, and the radius. So let me go ahead and adjust that radius a little bit. Now you can see the radius is a little bit smaller, and you get this really dramatic effect. Let me show you from like a side view what that looks like. It's just really fun. And you can play around with the settings. There's no one size fits all, but this is a fun one. So I'm excited to show you guys kind of like how this works. All right, yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, we also have the speed of the simulation. I'll just bump that up to 2 so you can see the difference. It's easier to see on the sphere, so let me adjust that. So here's the sphere right here. You can see the speed of the simulation has increased. I can also increase the density. So if you kind of want to have this like burst effect, you can. If you want to really slow it down to like 0.5, you can do that as well. And that'll look something like this, right? Kind of this slow growth outwards of these curves. So this is really fun. A little more on the complex side to create. So I'm going to overview the nodes with you real quick, and then we'll get started right away. Any comments you guys have so far, drop them in the chat. All right, so if we go over to geometry nodes here, let me just go ahead and show you guys the node setup. So this is just kind of an overview of what these nodes look like. I thought I organized these very nicely. I can't really fit them all on the screen, but basically we'll go through each component separately. Like I said, there's a simulation component. There's a few things I'm working on to add to this, but so far I'm really feeling confident that you guys are going to like this one just because there's so many things to learn about this tutorial. So just a quick overview. Basically, we start with an initial mesh right here. It could be anything from a sphere, a cube, a grid, really anything that you want it to be, or your own custom object. We then store the index values for the curves, right? We want to make sure that we actually store those values. We iterate on those points in a simulation. And then this is where our noise texture gets applied. And that's how you actually get those like expansive points. And then we take those points, we convert them to a curve. We then give them random length. And this part, I actually have to turn this back on. You can also add points at the end of each curve, which kind of give this like almost this spore effect, like this almost like a bacteria growing or some kind of organic thing growing. And then, where are we at here? We can also randomize the material, which we have here. I'll talk about that. And then finally, like the finished statement, which is just rejoining everything all together. This is a fun one. There's quite a few things we're going to go over here. But overall, you can kind of see how this all works. How do you adjust the speed per frame though? The speed per frame, I'm not sure. You might be able to use this delta time right here. Although I haven't really adjusted the speed per frame. Now you can adjust the frame rate right here in your output properties. But again, we're just gonna be going over what I created so far. That's a great point though. If you wanna expand on that and get back to me, maybe we can work together. We can try to simulate that together in terms of the frame speed. Sorry, speed per frame. All right, so let's go ahead and let's let's build this thing. I hope you guys are excited. This is a fun one again. So I'm going to have the nodes on a separate computer on the left here so I can make sure I'm recreating this to a T. So I was working on this yesterday, so this might be a little rusty in the beginning here, but we're all going to work on it together. All right, we're in a brand new document here. Let me just get out of there we go. All right, press A, delete everything, and I'm just going to start with, you can really start with anything. I'll just start with a single vertice. And make sure you tab out of edit mode. A lot of the time when you add a vert, it just like pops you right into edit mode. I don't really like that. But either way, go over to geometry nodes, brand new geometry node setup. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just get a sip of coffee because we're going to have quite a few nodes. All right. So very first thing we need is some kind of mesh to work with. I'll just start with a sphere because it's going to be super easy to see what this looks like with a sphere. We'll just go ahead and plop that in there. All right, so we have our sphere. If it wants to let me connect it, there we go. We have our sphere. We need to run this through a simulation node, but before we do that, we're gonna need to store the index value of the points. But in order to store the index value of the points, we need a mesh to points. Okay, so again, we're taking that sphere, we're putting points everywhere that there's a vertice, and then what we're gonna do is we're actually going to store a value. I'm going to do stored named attribute. And basically what this is going to do is gather information on this sphere, like whatever we want it to gather. So I'm going to go ahead and put this over here. I'm going to join this right here into its own frame, and I'm going to join these into their own frame, and this will make sense later. Also, Control J is the shortcut for that. So we have mesh to points. We want to store the index. And what the index is, for those who don't know, and it took me a while to learn this, we're going to plug it into the value. We're just going to call this original, and this is going to be the original position of the index of a point. I'm going to call this expansion. I'm going to save this too. It's always a good time to save when you start building in geometry nodes because you never know when it's going to crash. So each one of these points has their own index. It's like a number assigned to that point. So when we expand these out, we want to keep track of each one of those so that we can create a curve from that original index. I hope that makes sense. Now, if you don't see this side panel here, press N, and then you're going to go to node and label, and I'll just adjust this real quick. I'll say store index value. Okay. That way we know exactly what's happening here, right? And then right here, I'm just going to say decide mesh, because we're going to add some more stuff to that later. So we've stored the value. The next thing we need to do is we need to move all this over, and you're going to actually want to start simulating things. So we need a simulation. I'm going to plug in my geometry to the start of the simulation, and then the output of the simulation to our group output. Now, everything in between is what's going to happen during the simulation. So if I go up here, it probably is a good idea to just make this your timeline up here. Why is my mouse? What the heck? Hold on one second, guys. My mouse is being a little bit weird right now. I may have to switch it. Okay, so I want to put my timeline up here so I can press play. Now, right now, nothing's going to happen. I might have to swap my mouse out. Hold on one second. The battery. Come on, man. I'm in the middle of a tutorial, bro. What's going on? Okay, that seemed to have fixed it. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so end frame 60. I like to keep the end frame short because I want to make sure I can constantly see those updates as we go. Yeah, and yes, an index would be an indice. Thank you. That sounds about right. Yeah. All right, so in the simulation here, we're going to be changing basically one thing. Let's see, make sure I have the right stuff here. Yep, we're going to be changing the position. Now, let me just show you guys what a set position node would do. Right now, if I plop the set position in here, nothing's going to happen because they're all set to 0. But if I set this to 0.1 and I press play, I just want you to watch what happens. We're moving things, right? We're moving them 0.1 every frame. Everything that happens in the simulation happens every single frame, right? Just repeatedly over and over again, constantly. That's kind of like how this animation or this simulation works. But right now it's moving all the points at once. We want this to move all of the points at once and then add a new point in the original position. To do that, we're going to create a join geometry node here, and we're going to add in that same geometry right here. You've probably seen this technique used before. Now what's going to happen is these are going to move across, but there's going to be an old point in place of the other ones. So now we get something that looks kind of like this. And now we're on the right track, right? We have this expansion that we're looking for, but it's not really expanding the right way. So here's where our set position nodes are going to come into play. Right now we're offsetting it by a specific value, but instead of doing that, we're going to offset it by a noise texture, and this is where we're really going to get into some fun stuff. So I'm going to plug the FAC into the offset, and now watch what happens if I press play. Whoa! So it expands that way, but again, not exactly what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the position again, and we're going to use the inverse of this. So watch this. We're going to go ahead and do a vector math. And now instead of adding, we're going to scale it by -1. So we're going to flip it back on itself, plug it back into the offset. Now if we reset, now we're getting something that we're looking for here. Now let me just double check. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do here as well is we're going to make sure this is on 3D FBM. I'm going to use the exact same scale that I used before. It was 0.01, I believe. Let's go ahead and check on that. Okay, awesome. And we're also going to go ahead and use the roughness of 1 and 3D FBM. Yep. Double checking. And then I'm also multiplying the scene time by the scale. So actually, no, this is my old version. Hold on a second. Yeah, we're going to keep, okay, we'll keep this at 1. Just double checking. Yep, offset. Good. Okay, that looks good. Let's do 0.1, by the way. All right, now we should be getting something that's a little bit more sporadic. It's a little bit better, but why is it looking weird here? Float point. Oh, double checking, guys. Geometry. Yep. Oh, right. So the key part that's going to make this work, sorry, totally forgot. This is something we're going to add now because I forgot that we need to multiply the scale of the sphere, which is our original object, by the scene time. So this is actually something I discovered yesterday. I didn't know you could do this because I thought everything had to be inside the simulation zone. It does not. We're going to take our scene time and we're going to go ahead and plug in the frames to the actual radius here. I'm also going to dumb this down a little bit here. So what happens is when we plug in the frames to the radius, and we're going to have to adjust this, I just want you to watch what happens. It's going to, every single frame, it's going to multiply the size of the sphere. So we're going to get something that looks kind of like that. Does everybody see that? I'm going to go ahead and dumb this down with some math here. That doesn't really make sense. That's like an oxymoron. But we're going to multiply this by a smaller value, maybe something like 0.1. Now we get a slower expansion. Notice how now, and again, this was an accidental discovery yesterday, but I just thought this was too cool not to share. When you press play, you're getting this expansion effect, right? And you can see how we have all of our points. You're getting this expansion effect because the sphere, like, let me see if I can explain this because I'm probably going to confuse myself. The sphere is getting bigger, right? And that noise that's being applied in the sphere is always being applied every single frame. But because the sphere is increasing in size, it has to keep up with itself, and you get this really cool effect. Now, right now, these are still just points, so now we actually have to convert them to a mesh and a, well, we have to convert them to a curve and then to a mesh. This part might take a second because there's a lot of nodes for this part, so let me go ahead and pull this up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and press pause. So this right here, I'm gonna highlight this. We're gonna join these into a frame here, and I'm just gonna call this noise generator. Okay, good. Now, what we need next is we need to do a mesh to points. Or sorry, points to curves. So we want to convert all these points to a curve. But you'll notice when we do that, they all connect together. This was another discovery I made when I was creating the aerodynamic shader a while ago. What we're going to do here, I'm going to join this real quick so we have this in a frame. We're actually going to use that index ID. Do you guys remember the index right here? You guys remember what that was called? Original. So now what we're going to do, check this out. We're going to type in named attribute, and it's basically a variable that we assigned, and we're going to search for it. There it is right there, original. We're going to plug the attribute into the curve ID, and voila. Now we have a curve based on the original index. So if we press play, now we have this really cool expansive effect, and it has a curve for every single index. This took me so long to figure out. It was so frustrating. But man, am I glad I figured it out because it was so worth it. All right, so now we're gonna have to do a few other things. So right now, this is just a regular curve. We wanna actually change the sampling, so I'm gonna resample the curve. Now this is really useful because if you wanna dumb it down, you can see that the lower amount, if you just want this to look like a firework, you can literally have it be a count of 2. The higher the count is, basically the more detailed it is. So I'll just keep it at 10 for now. That should be plenty. We want to reset the spline type. We want the spline type to be Bezier because we don't want this to be poly. We want it to be smooth. So I'll do Bezier. It's not going to change too much because of how smooth it already is. And then we also want to change the handle type, and we just want to have it set to default, left and right. And if they're not both selected, hold shift. All right, next we need to set the curve radius, which is basically how thick it is. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. You're eventually going to do curve to mesh. I'll show you what that does. So when you do curve to mesh, you're going to need a profile. In this case, we're going to need a curve circle. Now, you can see that we're good to go, right? We can change the radius right here. But I actually want it to taper off towards the end. And the way to do that is we're going to use a float curve and a little bit of simple math and a spline parameter to do so. Whenever I can't figure out how to do something, by the way, guys, I just Google it. Like, a lot of people are like, how do you learn so much about geometry nodes? I just Google. Every time I have a question, go straight to Google, search it, go on the forums, and I figure out how to do it, and then I apply it here. Okay. All right, thank you guys for your patience. So right now, we have a consistent width. I also like to set this resolution really low. Now, you can see right now there's about 3 different sides to it. I feel like because we're going to have so many of these, 7 or 8 is fine, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to notice. And if you want to, you can fill caps, which means at the end, you kind of cap it off with like a flat plane, and that's fine too. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to add our float curve. So right here, I already have my curve to mesh, but right before that, I actually want to do set curve radius. Again, same thing as before. This radius value is more or less the same. They kind of work in conjunction, so you can see when I do this, what happens, right? So here's what's really fun. There's something called a spline parameter, which I learned about recently, and it takes the factor or the length of the curve, and it is basically just like a value of like 0 to 1, I'm pretty sure. When we plug that, the factor into the radius, watch what happens. Oh my God, what happened? Well, we need to use some math because it's really intense. We need to multiply it by a smaller value. And when you do that, you can kind of see that now it tapers off. But wait a second, Kenny. It's tapering off in the wrong direction. That is where my good friend, float curve, comes into play here. You go ahead and plug this in here. Hopefully you guys are following along. There we go. Make some room here. This is a big node group, but it's going to work at the end. All right, so now we have our float curve. And what we can do is we can decide if we want one side to be thin and the other to be thick. And then if you want it to kind of taper out a little bit better, you can do something like this. And this is so awesome because like a float curve is almost like a profile for the curve. And then you can come in here and you can adjust this multiply value until you're happy with the result. And now we get something that looks like this. Very awesome. Okay, now, next up. We want to randomize the length. This is something that I also had to do some research on, but it was really cool. So right now, this real quick, I'm just going to name this. I'm going to call this convert to curve. And then we're going to make the random length generator, which is basically a trim curve. So trim curve basically takes the end of the curve and it trims it. And it's, I have curve to mesh. I'm sorry. Curve to mesh should be right here. This should be here, and this should be there. There we go. I'm sorry. Trim curve takes the end and it trims it down. So it takes the end or the start, and you can basically decide where it starts or stops. Very useful, especially if you want to like animate this. I'm going to keep the start at 0. Now the end, you can see that I can adjust them all at once, but if I want them all to be varied lengths, also this needs to be out of this frame here. If we want these to be varied lengths, all we have to do is plug a random value into it. Now, in this case, instead of picking a number for a random value, you can also just do like a Boolean, and you can select how many you want, right? But I don't want to do that because I want them to be a very specific length. So what I can do instead is go to float, plug this into the end, and I think I'll do a value of like 0.25 to 1. And now you can see that all of these are slightly different, right? They're not all going to expand at the same rate anymore, which is kind of exactly what you want here. This looks really good already. I'm super happy with how this is turning out. All right, so next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys how to add something to the end of these curves. And this is really powerful because you can kind of create what's called like an end cap or like your own custom end sphere, whatever you really want it to be. We're gonna use a sphere in this case, and we're just going to do some simple instancing on points. And we're going to use a endpoint selection to actually select that area. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to take the curve now. Go ahead and pull it up here, instance on points. me just make sure I'm doing that right. Yeah, that's after trim curve. Okay, cool. Yeah, the order you do this can sometimes matter as well. So let me just take a quick look at the comments. Question, can you add Blender and STL and animate the STL? Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'll show you guys. You can use any object for this. It's really awesome. Okay. All right, so we have instance on points. Real quick, I'm going to just join the geometry here so you guys can see what's happening. And I will, for this instance, I'll just do a sphere. And we'll instance a sphere onto these points. And we'll just lower the radius. And now what happens here, also this may be the effect you're going for. This personally isn't what I'm looking for. I just want these points to be on the end, like the very end of the actual thing. It's actually really easy to do. Just go to endpoint selection. You plug this into selection, and that's it. Now you'll see they're also going to be on the beginning too, so make sure start size is 0, because you can see if you zoom in here, let me just make this smaller so we can see it. If you zoom in, you can see that they also placed a sphere, sorry, the geometry nodes wizards placed a sphere at the beginning. If you don't want that, change your endpoint selection to 0, and it'll just place a sphere at the end. I'm also going to lower this like size of this. That's it. And we'll just readjust the curve a little bit. So now when you press play, you have these spheres on the end of your curves. It's really that simple. All right. You don't require a good GPU. Certain things will be slower. Yeah, GPU is super important. I have a 3070 Ti, so I don't have any issues with that. What else do I want to do here? Yeah, okay, so we can scale the instances. You don't have to do this. This is just a part that I thought was cool. I'll just join this real quick. I'm going to call this add spheres. Wow, is that it? Oh, that's cool. Celebrate their first super on a live stream. Oh my God, congratulations. Basic modeling and animation, right? Yes, yes you can. All right, so we're going to scale these instances. Scale instances right here. And in this case, I want to scale them randomly, as usual. So I'll just type in a random value. Give myself some room here. I'll plug that into the scale. And we can just do a value from like 1 to 2. And you can see now they're all slightly different. And if you really want to, because I think it's important with spheres especially, we can shade these smooth. So I'll just add a set shade smooth node right here. Good to go. Awesome. All right, now I'm going to show you guys a few more things that we can add to this. We'll do the material last if you guys are cool with that. I'm just going to go ahead and go back here, so I want to double check something. Okay, yeah. So I want to show you guys how you can add different meshes to this. So right now, the mesh that we decided on is a UV sphere, which is fantastic. But I want to show you guys something that I've been showing a lot in a lot of these live streams, and this is how to actually decide with a menu what you want. And it's called a menu switch. So I'm going to type in menu switch. I'm going to add that into this little frame here. A menu switch takes different inputs and it shoots out one output. And you can decide what those outputs are, or I'm sorry, what those inputs are. Right now, this sphere, I'm going to plug this into slot A, and then the output of the menu switch, I'm going to plug in right here. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to add a cube as well. That'll be our second one, and then I'll add a grid. This is what I originally did the simulation with. That'll be slot C. Oopsies. So it'll look something like this, right? So let me just do this so you can see a little bit better. So we're going to decide between these three things. Now, the important part here is that we can decide this in geometry nodes, but if we want the user to be able to decide that, we can plug the group input into that. And now look, on the right, I can decide what I want. So if I select B, right, and we go back to the simulation, you'll notice now we have a cube. Kind of a similar concept, but the cube doesn't have many vertices, so you can see it's acting very strange. Also, we didn't plug in this right here. This is our, let me just type this in. What did I call this? Expansion. Yeah, and that makes sense because whatever this plugs into will expand that thing. So I'm going to plug this into the size of the cube, and you can see now we're getting that result because we're changing the size of the cube over time. And then with the grid, it's a little different because with the grid, you want to make sure you plug in your multiplication value here into the size X and Y. And I'll show you what that looks like with the grid, which is option mesh. This is the grid. Now, if you go to the grid and you type in 10 by 10, right, and you go back, wait, why isn't that working? Mesh, size, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, maybe it's clamp, let me see. There we go. This one's cool. All right, we're gonna need the size to be a little bit bigger though. So in order for whoever wants to adjust the size, they can also adjust that right here, right? That could be the actual size itself. But in this case, what you might want to do, let me just see what I did here. The density multiplier, yep. Size, yep, density multiplier. Okay, I did a lot here. This one, if you look at the original node setup, it's a little more complex than this. I'm trying to look at how I did it, make sure I show you guys the correct way to do this. And I'm going to look at the comments real quick. Geometry nodes reminds me a lot of programming in a sense. Very interesting. Yeah, I agree. For me, like, you have to really think logically about it. And I think with coding, you have to go back and forth and back and forth. And there's a lot of back and forth in geometry nodes too. 4K productions. What in the world? I would sell my soul to get a full understanding of geonodes. That's why I try to I mean, you guys tell me if I'm doing a bad job or a good job, but I try my best to explain like what each node does. But at the end of the day, if you don't fool around with it every day, it's not going to make it as much sense to you if you're not actually using geometry nodes every day like I am. Like in my free time, I open up my laptop and I just start fiddling around with things, and that's how I discovered how to do this. Now, this one's acting a little bit weird, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. I really don't know. Let me just see let me see if our sphere is still working. What the heck's going on here? There we go. Something wacko is happening. There we go. Okay, do not enable clamp. I don't know why that... Does anybody know what clamp does? Let's have this open conversation right now. What in the heck does this do? Because I really don't know. Because it gives you wildly different results, and I feel like no one ever talks about it. What does it do? Like, what does it actually do to the value of the node? Because I really don't know. If anyone could find that out, that would be amazing. Okay. Back to what we were doing. I want to show you guys this other thing. If you click on menu switch, a lot of people don't know how to change this. If you click on menu switch on the right hand side here, oh my god. On the right hand side, you can adjust what these say. So if you want this to say sphere, and then cube, and then grid, you can just double click and you can adjust those values right here. Trial by fire is the geonode's way. Yeah, it really is. Clamp keeps it in with a range of 0 and 1, I think. Yeah, I guess that makes sense because we were getting like really weird results there for a minute. That would make a lot of sense. All right, let's see if the grid is working now. What the heck? All right, the grid is kind of working. So this is where you go back, right, and you go to the noise texture, and now you can like really experiment with this. There's a lot of like different results that you can get for this. Let me just show you guys. So let's go back to the sphere example real quick. All right, so here's our sphere example. Let's just go to the side view. It's kind of like flying all over the place, but if you go to the scale, I just want to show you what a scale of 1 looks like. So that's actually cool. You know what's funny? I did not get this result last time. So here's what's interesting about this. With a scale of 1, you can notice how the noise is much more intense, and you almost get this like expansive pattern, like this, almost like this interweaving. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, how do you make the curves avoid each other? I haven't figured that out yet, but that's one thing I would like to look into. But look how much more interesting this is. Like, let's look at this in like a full screen view here. I mean, it's like really expanding outwards in a way that I have not even seen this before. Like, even when I was experimenting with this yesterday, it was nothing like this. Again, this is why I always talk about in all my live streams, all my tutorials, how important it is to experiment with the values. Many people, and this is like frustrating for me because I try to make good content. Many people will say, Kenny, I tried it, it doesn't work, right? They won't even explain why it doesn't work. Most of the time it doesn't work because maybe they scaled their cube a little bit too big or was a little bit too small, right? The values are so important, and I just can't express how important they are because now look, I'm getting a completely different result. And if someone mistyped a number, they'll get this result instead of the one I showed on tutorial. So it's really frustrating as like a content creator sometimes, you know, trying to like get it perfect. And that's one of the things that I think is one of my biggest challenges, because whatever you see, you're going to want to get that exact same result. But the fact is, it's just not realistic, right? Because people make mistakes. Or you could follow it exactly to a T, and your random seed generator could be like one number off. So in this case, we're getting some cool results here, but I had to experiment to get there. And this is actually really cool. I actually really like this effect. This is really neat. Flying spaghetti monster looking scene. Yup. Normalize does something akin to clamp. Probably close to that, yeah. It's acting like a parasite. Yeah, I would say that it is. Okay. All right, let's continue. Let's do some node cleanup, and I also want to double check, make sure I didn't miss anything here. Oh, someone asked about their own custom model. Can you do this with your own custom model? Yes, you can. Let's go ahead and add a monkey to the scene. Let's just pretend for a second like this monkey is our custom model. Let me just apply the scale real quick. So I'm going to apply the scale. I'm going to hide this. I'll go back to GeoNodes. Where are we at? Okay, so right here in our menu switch, I'm going to do an object info node. Sorry, not object info. So the reason we use the object info node is because we want to make sure we gather any information we want to about this. And the regular object node does not have an input. We want this input so we can ask the user what they want to do. I'm just going to drag this down here. We need a group input. And in this case, I want someone to be able to decide the object. I also want this object to be fed into our menu switch so that it's one of the options. Now notice how it's grayed out here. That's because we don't have it selected. But if I do select it, now we can go over here. We can select Suzanne, which is our monkey. And if I press play, now we have Suzanne. But we're getting a weird glitch. So let's try relative for the size. We're still getting a weird glitch. Let me double check something here. Oh, right. What didn't we change about Suzanne? We didn't scale her up over time. We're not using this expansion. So how do we do that? Well, it's a little different because there's no size input for the object info node. So what we have to do is we have to do a scale element. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can do transform geometry. Sorry, not transform directions. Transform geometry, which has a scale option, but we just want to scale. So I'm going to do scale elements. Same thing really. So in this case, the scale, we can plug in our expansion value to the scale. And now you can already see it starting to work. Now we're expanding from Suzanne. It actually kind of still looks like Suzanne a little bit. And now you can plug in any object that you want. One of the things I love teaching about too is in our modifiers panel over here where all of our options are. I love showing people how to use group input because I think everybody thinks it's so complicated to like create your own add-ons, and it is. But at the end of the day, all you have to do is just like plug and play and figure out what does what. Like this is a really cool little effect. You know what I could even see this being used for is like a circuit board generator because it almost reminds me of like something techie. You know, I'm not sure if anybody else is getting that vibe, but that's what it's looking like. Can one assign a predetermined path with random rotation to every strand? Yes, you can. I just forget how. I think it is possible. You'd have to like send me an example of what you mean. I'm assuming what you mean. I never use the annotation tool, but we're going to use it now. I'm assuming what you mean is like you have a bunch of lines going in one direction, like following a path, and they all have their own rotation like this. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that kind of what you're going for there? Or are you saying like they all start in one way and then they like expand outwards like that? Monkeypox generator. That's actually pretty funny. All right, let me see. Yeah, but that's a good question. I do love like, I don't know. I love GeoNodes. Where's the eraser on this thing? This is why I don't use the annotation tool. There it is. All right, is there a bigger eraser? Here we go. Here we go. Oh, yeah, that's great. There we go. There we go. See, I don't use the annotation tool because I think I'm just not quick enough with it, but that's fine. It's a really cool effect. All right, now what we have to do, now that we have this effect, I want to show you guys how we can apply a random color to everything. Let me just go to the code. The code. It basically is code at this point. There we go. All right, so very first thing we need is a material. So I'm going to go to my material slot down here. I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to call this randomizer. Actually, I'm just going to call it, material 1. The reason why is because we're going to use that name for something else. All right, I'm just going to call it material, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Go to GeoNodes, and at the very end is where we want to assign our material. In this case, I'm only going to assign it to the curve. Set material node. We'll join that, and we'll call it random material. Okay. I'll bring that down here. Give us some room. All right, so for a random material, we're going to need to go to our shading tab first, and then I'll show you kind of how this works. All right, so in our shading tab, we have our material. We need to use something called an attribute. Okay, and we're also going to need a hue and saturation value. We're going to plug our hue and saturation value into the color, and then we're going to actually plug the FAC into the hue. And I'll just give this like a pink color. It really doesn't matter what it is. This will make sense in just a second. Oh, also, we have to change our material right here. All right, so far, we have green. And the reason we have green is because our FAC is just like a floating value in like outer space. Like it doesn't really mean anything right now. We can change this right here, and it'll change whatever the hue being changed is, like that value will change to blue. So I guess red makes blue. But in this case, we actually want to change the color of every single individual element. So how do we do that? Well, we go back to geometry nodes. We need to reference that variable with a stored named attribute. And in this case, our stored named attribute was, what did I call it? Oh, I didn't call it anything. Let's call it randomizer. And let's go back to GeoNodes. Let's type in randomizer. And just to check if it's working, see it's blue right now. I'm going to adjust this value down here. You can see that it is working. This is a quick way to check if it's working or not. You adjust this value. So that's cool and all. We're changing the hue, but we're only changing the hue for all of the lines. We want to change them for all the individual lines together. So in order to do that, we need a random value, or not, random value. There we go. We'll plug in the random value into our value, okay? But again, we're getting something that looks kind of weird. And the reason why is it's trying to like apply it to, I believe, the faces at this point. We need to decide that we want the mesh island. Mesh island means, well, think about what an island is. It's basically something that's like separate from everything else. So it's going to try to find those separate pieces. In that case, that should be the curves. And we want the index, which is, as we remember, the index of the curve. In other words, which curve is it? Is it curve number 1? Is it curve number 2? Plug that into the ID. And now we have random colors for every single curve. But you're probably thinking, well, Kenny, like, that's really silly. I want it to be like more blue focused. Well, if you want it to be more focused on one color or another, you can go here to this value. You can type in something like 0.2. And now you can see that everything's going to kind of shift towards a certain area. So let's say you wanted to do like 0.5, but you want to start it at like 0.3. Right now it's going to be a little more pink. So this value range is basically where these colors lie on the hue scale. So if I wanted to be more yellow, I could adjust this to like 0.48 to 0.6. Make sense? In this case, I just want like a rainbow effect, so I'll do 0 to 1, and it should go through basically all the colors, more or less. I think you could probably adjust this to 2. I don't know. Adjust it to whatever you want. But you can see how this changes the colors of everything. And that's it. That's all it takes for the random material. Super powerful. It works with instancing as well, so you can always do that as well. If you have time, take a look at the initial Intel GPU. Oh, you guys are talking about tech stuff. Fun, fun, fun. Capture the scene time as an attribute and import it into the shader. Instead of using noise to generate random animation path for each strand, could it be possible to use a pre-made curve for strands to grow along? I think so. I think you can sample another curve. I'll look into that after this. But I do want to talk about, someone said earlier, can you animate the, what did you say? Can you animate the color? I believe that you can. Let's try it. Let's try scene time. Remember, scene time gives us the seconds or the frames. Maybe if we plug in frames into the max value, let's just see what happens. Let's go back. That's really trippy. Let's try this again, but let's try it with a math node, and let's multiply it by a small number. 0.01. There you go. Now it's animating through all the hues. That is a really cool way to do that. I would have never thought to do it that way, but there you go. And if you really want to, because we're getting real organized with our nodes here, you can join these and just say change color over time. There you go. Boom. There it is. That was a cool idea. Whoever said that, really, really cool idea. I dig it. All right, let's do, let's try that curve thing you were talking about. Now, I don't really know, I don't know if it's possible to like animate curves along another curve, but I'm sure it is. I just don't know specifically how you would do that. Also, you know what? Screw it. Let's also give our, we'll give, you know what we'll do? We'll set this material as well. Oh, crap. We need join geometry here. I want to see what this looks like if the spheres are also the same material. Did it work? It did not. There we go. Now the spheres are the same material. How cool. Let's change it back to sphere. So awesome. I love it. I think this turned out really, really fun. Where's material preview? There we go. Super cool. Again, this is like, I don't really know what you would use this for, but it looks cool. A lot of people are probably thinking, this is great, Kenny, but like, what in the world would I use this for? The first thing that comes to mind is something like organic or abstract, of course, but you could also kind of gear this towards like the scientific part of things. Maybe you want to have something that is like a bacteria growing, or maybe you just want to have like a creature in outer space that looks like this. I don't know. Do whatever you want with the information, but at the end of the day, you just have to get creative and figure out what you want this to look like. Let me look at the grid again. I want to see what the grid looks like. The grid's really cool because you can really see like the pattern of the noise. Oh, also, I bet you're asking yourself, well, can I convert this to a mesh? Yeah, you could. You could just right-click, convert it to a mesh, and now it's a mesh. And then you just lost all your geometry nodes. So let's undo that. There we go. Super awesome. Yeah, it could be used for advertising. Yep. All right, let's try this other thing we were talking about. All right, delete everything, add a curve. We'll just add a let's add a Bezier curve. All right, so here's a Bezier curve. Let me just give it a few more things here. Just expand it. All right, well, this will be our curve. We'll mess around with this curve and see if we can like do something with it. Go to geometry nodes, new, and then you said you wanted to generate curves along the curve. Let me just think about that for a minute. Let's see some curve, sample curve. Okay, so here's the position. So let's try something real quick. Curve line. Just plug this in here. And then the start, just see something. Let me do set position. Maybe offset. I'm wondering if you do this, hold on. I don't know if you're seeing this, but it is following the curve. The reason you can't see it is because we have to join the geometry. All right, so here's our curve path, and this is the line that we made. In order to see that, let me just quickly curve to mesh. Let me just do this real quick. Okay, let's do a curved circle. And we'll just quickly plug that in there. All right, so we have a curve that we made, and we can have it follow based on the factor. So that's pretty cool if you wanted like something to follow a curve. I don't really use the sample curve, but it kind of makes sense how it works. So that kind of gets you running in the right direction. Now, in terms of making that like follow that curve path, let me think for a second. I think you can take a curve and convert it to points, and then you can make, hold on, let me think. If you do a grid, because I did this before with my rope generator, and now I'm trying to remember what I did. My issue with noise texture is if you look from a certain angle, the strands stretch out at weird angles. You can see the pattern, and the growth is not really organic and omnidirectional. That is a good point, and maybe we can figure out a way to solve that. Yeah, maybe we can figure out a way to solve that. But for right now, I want to leave this one alone because there's one more thing I wanted to go over for this live stream, and it's an expansive effect that's similar to the last, but it has to do with like expansion of like a cube. So let's do that real quick. Also, if you here, actually, sorry, if you want these nodes real quick, there they are. That's how to make something follow a curve. Can you make the curve follow an image? Maybe. You might be able to convert the pixel data into points and then connect those points into a curve and then have something follow that curve, but that might be a whole different thing. Now with an SVG, it's probably different because an SVG is made of curves, sort of like it's made of like math, basically. All right, so what was I gonna do? Oh yeah, okay, so I want to create a single vert, as usual. Go to geometry nodes. What I'd like to do is I want to show you guys, because I was messing around with this yesterday, I want to show you guys how to create an expansive cube. It'll make sense in a second. So let's add a cube. Let's get rid of this. All right, we got our cube. We're going to take that cube into a simulation. Actually, sorry, you can't do that. I'll do simulation. Okay. And I will go ahead and plug that in here. All right, so now we have our cube. Nothing's going to happen if we press play, but let me go back to the timeline. Let me just also save this because this tends to crash. Cube expansion. Okay. All right, so in here, what we want to do is we want to extrude the cube. We want to extrude the mesh, right? Now watch what happens if I press play. I'm going to pause it real quick because this goes crazy. Whoa. So what's happening here is it's expanding very quickly, which is what we did. We said, can you please extrude the mesh? It's extruding every side of the mesh. We don't want that to happen. What we want to happen is we want it to extrude just an index, which remember, with the index, that could be side phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, whatever we want. In this case, I want the index to be compared, not combined, compare, and I want to say I just want it to be equal to 1. And the result will be that side. So now you can see that side gets expanded, which is really cool. But what if we wanted to like expand it and then expand another random part and then expand another random part and this and that? In this case, we can do that. And this is where it gets really fun. And this is where like, well, you'll see. We'll go into this. I hope you guys are paying attention because this is actually really cool. Now it started to glitch out yesterday when I started to do this, but we're gonna do it anyway. We want to take the scene time. And remember, every time we expand this cube, like if I press play right now, watch what happens. See how now we have so many more faces? Those are more indices that we can work with. But in this case, right now we're just comparing it to 1. But what if we compared it, before we get into scene time, to a random value? We'll do an integer because we don't have any like decimal places here. What if we wanted to pick a random value between 1 and 6? And what if we wanted to change that every frame? Save this real quick. Now when we press play, we're getting expansion off of each of those sides. But remember, it's only expanding off of 1 through 6. But I want it to expand off of the frame value because every time we add a new like segment, now we want to have more options, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make the max the frame count. Now we have something that looks like this. Also, let me turn on cavity because it looks way cooler. We can see better. Fun. All right, so now look what we have, right? It's expanding in a way that's a lot cooler. But what if we wanted to expand and also adjust a stored name attribute like we did before? Am I using the latest? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I am using 4.4.0. That is the version I'm using. So now you can kind of see how this works, right? It's expanding off of random results here. Let's do a stored named attribute. And let me go back to this other file, save this one, geometric expansion. Let me just make sure I have the correct one here. Where is it? There it is. All right, so we're going to call this index 1, even though it really doesn't need to be called that. And we're going to store, just make sure I'm doing this right. We're going to store a named attribute, also called index 1. This is going to like not make sense, but it worked yesterday, so we're just going to do it. We're going to store this value, and then we're going to reference it again at the end, and we're going to plug in the new value back into itself. I know, doesn't make sense, but for some reason, it worked. And then we're going to take that index value. My God, what did I do here? And we're going to plug it into, I believe this. No, that didn't work. Hold on. Index. I'm trying to remember what I did here. Oh, did I plug it into the max? I think maybe I did. No? Min? What in the world? My other node setup actually makes no sense to me, but hold on, let me just see what this does. So far, we're getting that expansive effect. I forgot you could see the version at the top of the screen. Oh, yeah, right here. Yeah, but it's all good. So far, we do have this expansive effect, but this was something I was working on yesterday. I don't remember how I did this next part here. Hold on. Float. Oh, it's an integer. That will help. Hold on. Integer point. Yep. I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but we want to take that index and plug it in somewhere. I'm just trying to remember where I plugged it in. Cannot answer that right now. Hold on. Sorry, guys. 1 second here. Hey, I'm on a live stream. Can I call you back later? Okay. All right. Where were we, guys? I apologize. Okay. All right. I don't know how much I want to expand all of this, but why don't you guys drop a comment and tell me what else you guys want to see? Sorry, it's my sister. I gotta make sure she's okay. Okay, we're good. All right. Sorry, family first, guys. Love you guys, but family first, always. Everything is all good. Some people just don't understand. I gotta have my time for Blender, you know? All right, let's see if there's any other projects we can dive into real quick. If not, we'll create something else fun. Cube expansion. That was the last one we went over. That was a fun one. What's this one? Curve growth. The heck is this? Oh, you know what this was? This was me trying to create what we created today. What was this one? Yeah, no, this one did not work out. All right, let's start a completely fresh document. I'll have you guys decide what we do next. How long have we been streaming for? We've been streaming for about an hour, but I'm willing to go on a little bit longer if you guys want to hang out and have some Blender talk. We can also just kind of chat, you know what I mean? I can just we can do some modeling practice. We can do geometry node stuff, physics stuff, really whatever you guys want. Let me think of what else I could do with the simulation, because I think the simulation is what interests me the most. Let's add a single vert again, and let's just sit here for a second and think, because so far we know that with simulation nodes we can take a simulation and we can adjust the position of something very easily using a noise texture or really anything that we want. And I find that to be like super awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I love this stuff. We can also do geometry proximity. Well, here, let's do we can do a proximity real quick. We'll do that. Show you guys some cool proximity stuff. So here's a cube. We'll use that for like our proximity calculations. Excuse me. Let's plug in a grid. Let's do mesh to points. Will physics get any meaningful upgrade in the future? Because it's gotten so old. I believe geometry nodes just had an update for like modular stuff. Like, in other words, like calculate the velocity of something. There's like a whole module for that you can use now. Generate a fractal bump map. What? You could try a points to volumes, volume to mesh to like a smoke sim. Points to volume, volume to mesh, geometry node generator like a smoke sim. Yeah, that could be pretty cool. Let me try this really quick because I just want to show you guys this example. So I'm going to drag the cube into here because we want to use the proximity of this. Okay. And we're going to use the distance to adjust where these points are. Let's see if this even works. I don't even remember. It's not working because we need this to be relative. There we go. So look, it is working. It's just not working in the way that we want, and that is because, let me look, points, we want points. Geometry relative, yup. Try offset. There we go. Look at that. we need to use our good friend map range. Whoa. Everybody seeing that? It is working. I remember map range is kind of a pain though. Like, here we go. You can kind of see how it kind of works. Let me also adjust the size of this, see a little bit better. Multiply this. Stinking pain. This thing is I hate geometry proximity because I feel like it doesn't work the way that I want it to. You can see it's working right here. Like basically what it does is it kind of like moves things out of the way. Like it like adjusts other points based on like the proximity of where something is. Voxel cube explosion. Points to volume. Volume to mesh geometry nodes generator like a smoke sim. So one thing you can do, I will show you guys one cool thing you can do. This is really cool too. This is fun. All right, we'll do another one. We'll do a fluid sim. So I'll just add a cube to a new document. Quick effects, quick liquid. All right, so here's our liquid simulation, right? You can basically take this and then you can add points to it, and you could basically make each point a cube, just for example. Okay, so I'll go into geometry nodes, mesh, 2 points. And then I'll just do instance on points and cube. In this case, we're going to need to adjust the value of the cube. So do value node, plug it into the size. So now when you press play, it's going to be a little slow at first, but pretty cool, huh? It's kind of like this is very similar to if you took the vox, or if you did a remesh, like a voxel remesh. But this is pretty cool, right? So what's fun about geometry nodes is like it's so quick. Like again, this is something that I probably would have had no idea how to do like a year ago, but now that I'm so far into geometry nodes, I love it, and I love experimenting with this stuff too. It'd be really cool if you could access the vector, like the velocity of each particle in the fluid simulation, and like do something based on that. Do you have any ArcViz tutorials? Not at the moment, no. But that would be a cool topic to cover. I don't really do that kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes I'll do like, I'll try to like do realism. Realism's like really, really tough in Blender. You know what I wonder if we could do, guys? What if we could like plug in like scene time? I wonder if we could plug in the scene time to like the size of the cubes. Well, let me think here. Size of the cubes. Oh, you know what we can do? We can apply a rotate instances here, and we can rotate them by a random value. Let's do 0 to 360. Weird. Abstract looking for sure. Again, like, I don't love it. Let's try like, get a little bit like, kind of cool. It really depends on like the vibe that you're going for. Another thing you can do, this is crazy. You know, I didn't really think about this until now, but you could like kind of like remesh this whole thing. So you could realize the instances, and then you could merge by distance. Let's take a look at a close up here. Yeah, that looks cool. How awesome is that? So what we're doing here is we're basically merging all the vertices together. We're realizing all the instances, so we're turning all the cubes into like real mesh, and then we're merging them by distance. Now what could be really cool, let me just save this as blah blah blah, is if we took this and we added a subdivision surface to it, which might crash Blender. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Let me just go back here. Now, at this point, I wonder if you made this into curves, what would happen? Mesh to points. Points to curves. Ah, see, we're getting that same issue from before. So what's weird about this, though, is also we can't really use like the index of... There's really no index of like points here. I don't think there is. Let me think of how I would get the index. I'm thinking. Can I capture the index? Let me just try something real quick. Capture attribute index. Maybe pass that on here. No. Yeah, I don't know that you can do that. I thought, hold on. Stored name attribute. Capture the index. Let's call this monkey for no reason. And we'll do an integer. There, again, the issue I'm trying to solve right now, it's not what I want. What? That's so weird. Why would that not work, though? That's weird. Okay, I don't know. Is it possible for the cubes to be arranged in a three-dimensional grid-like structure so they sit tight and neat instead of clipping and intersecting like a Lego stop-motion animation? I think. Let me think about how you would do that. So you're saying like so they don't shift around? So right now, let me just undo the rotation so we can see this. So right now they intersect. I see what you're saying. Like you would imagine they would not intersect. Honestly, no, Siri. Honestly, what you would want to do instead is you would just want to not do any of this at all. I would just add a generate where is it? Remesh, and I would do blocks. Is this kind of what you meant, like this? Because that's kind of like close to what you were talking about. We'll let it replay it real quick. And then what you could do is you could increase the amount of blocks you want. And then if you really wanted to, this would probably be a little overkill, but you could do like a wireframe. I don't know. You kind of have the blocks right here. It's kind of a cool effect. The cool part about this too is if like you just wanted like this weird like geometric thing, you could just convert this to mesh and you'd have like a little city landscape or something like that. he said I have no idea what is going on, but I am enjoying it. Yeah. That's how I felt when I first opened up Blender ever. All right, let's try something new. Also want to see what old projects I have. Because there's a lot of cool projects in here that I've worked on in the past that are just so much fun to like pick back up on. Like, what is this? Like, I don't even remember. Oh, this is like turning something into like a balloon. Oh, you know what this was for when they were doing the Super Hive, when they were doing the Super Hive launch. This is a cool one, though. And I used a dispersion shader that I found. Man, that dispersive glass is so cool looking. Wow. Do I know Andrew Price? I do know who he is. I was at BCon was it last year, and I don't remember if I met him or not. I feel like if I did, it was very brief. I met Ducky 3D. I met Derek Elliott. I met Smouse. I met CG Matter. I met like all the big Blender YouTube guys. It was really fun. It was I met Tan. I met him and I basically just went up to him and I was like, dude, thank you for like making Blender. And thank you for making it free and accessible to everyone. Like, seriously. I could tell he was like very touched by that. Like he probably gets that all the time, but I could tell he was like, he's very emotionally connected to Blender for obvious reasons. But, I don't know. He just like, he's like, just like held his hand over his heart. You could just tell this is why he made Blender. It's like for people like me to go up to him and thank him, and just not for the thank you, but just because he knows he's making a difference in like the artistic community, and he allows us to have like a tool that we can do anything with. Do you have some advice for beginners to start selling on Gumroad Sketchfab? I want to start selling 3D assets. Yeah. My advice, just launch it. Like, make something cool that solves a problem or allows people to be more creative and is easy to use and install, and then just sell it. Like, go, like, put it on Gumroad, put it for $1, put it for free. I guess one of my biggest suggestions right now for stuff like that would be like, start with something free, because a lot of the times it's hard to go right out of the gate and start selling a paid product unless it's like really, really good. For example, like the guy that made flip fluids, like he could charge for that right away. But even then, before that, you want to start with a free product and then work your way up from there, because one, you want to get customers in the door, you want to get their email so you can market to them. But also, I don't know, sometimes it's like you want to offer something for free first, and then you want to offer the paid product later, because you're trying to provide value for someone at the end of the day. And if they don't see that you're providing them value, they're probably not going to pay you for something. It has to be something useful, though. Blender conference is a dream to go to. Maybe next year I'll go in Amsterdam. Yeah, I think I want to go. I think next year it's in, oh my God, where is it next year? And maybe they didn't announce the location yet, but hopefully it's in America. And if it is, I would love to go. Nathan is such a wholesome vibe. Yeah, Nathan. Yeah, Nathan is a good guy. I went up to him and was talking to him for a bit at Blender conference. He's a good guy, and his content's really good. I have an idea for a quick, lightweight, but entertaining tutorial. How to make liquid glass-like meshes, and simple transition animation. Oh, like the Apple stuff? Yeah. We can go over a quick liquid glass example. Do you guys want to do that? Like, try to make liquid glass like what is it called? Maybe we'll use this dispersion shader too. We'll use Smouses. PBR materials, an add-on where you can put materials easily without using shading. Yeah. That's another thing. So you can like click and drag the material. Amsterdam, the Blender's holy city. Yeah, basically. I'll just show you real quick because I want to show you something. Let's see this. Like, if you did want to make this like liquid glass thing, honestly, it's just as simple as like making a glass shader, but like the dispersion part of the shader is the tricky part. Now there are dispersive shader setups that you can like find online for free. I think you can also just make one from scratch though. Let's do this real quick. Let's take a newspaper image. Just do this. I'm just gonna go here, newspaper text. Sorry. I'm doing this so I can show you guys like an example. We're just gonna find a high quality image, or at least one that's like something like this. That's fine. I don't even know what this says, but we're gonna use it. Actually, hold on. I want one that we can like magnify the text a little bit, if you guys know what I'm saying here. This is fine. Let's just do this. Something that doesn't really mean anything. All right, so we'll take that image. We'll go to add image mesh plane. Find the image. I wonder, is it going to let me use a WebP? Let's try. Will it let me? Here it is. It will let me. Okay. The donut is the first thing a Blender newbie should learn. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. So we have our text here. Let's add in a cylinder. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to make this cylinder into like basically a capsule type of thing here. We're not going to do, we'll do liquid glass like connecting and breaking apart too, but right now I just want to make this like a really simple thing here. I want to add, I'm going to show you guys a trick because I'm sure you know this trick, but we'll add a bevel, we'll do an edge split, and then a subdiv surface if I can find it. Where is it? All right, so with the bevel, that's obviously going to bevel the object. But what the edge split does is allows you to like add additional subdivisions. Because if you don't have the edge split on, you get this weird result here. Let's do 20. Let's go ahead and. I feel like something like that would be good. Let me just apply this scale. I feel like that's fine. We'll just convert it to mesh and shade it auto smooth. We'll rotate it, move it down. That's fine. All right, so something like this, if we are in cycles, which we are, really all you have to do is make a glass BSDF, and it should just kind of start working automatically. So now you get that warped, like, look. Just like, that's really all it is. But the part that Apple does so well is they have like the dispersion on the edges. So that's something that like we can work on as well. Let me just find like a dispersion shader. But then you can see, like, as you move this, right, you kind of get that magnifying effect. Also, another thing to consider is the IOR. This is an IOR of 2, so you kind of get that warped edge. What you can also do is you can go over to the shading tab, zoom in on this, right? Let's see what we got here. Let's mix this with a... let me try something. I'm just going to try my own. I'm going to make my own glass dispersion shader. How about that, guys? Let me just try something real quick. I want to see what would happen if we just plugged in a layer weight to this. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, here I have an idea. I don't know if this is gonna work, but this could be really cool. Also need a color ramp here. Okay, let's try this. Let me see. You try to follow along, guys, if you're building this on your own. We're just gonna look at like the outer rim here because I kind of want to get that like dispersive effect. Apple's liquid glass used dispersion. I think it. Oh, let me look real quick. Let's look. I thought it did. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. If not, then the tutorial's done. But I could have sworn. Let's see. This is a good example right here. It's just so wild looking. Their liquid glass looks so good. I'm trying to find a really good example. Here's a good example here. Oh, maybe it doesn't use dispersion. Oh, maybe I was wrong. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Oh, whoopsies. I thought that it did. I still want to try the thing that I wanted to do here, though. Hold on. Let me try something here. Oh my God, what was I gonna do? Damn, I don't remember. I think I was gonna have like layered approaches to this, but now that I'm looking at the other example, I'm thinking maybe I won't do that. IRR of 2 is physically correct. No, it's not. It would be more like 1.45 or 1.5. 1.45 is glass. Like that would be glass. Yeah. Good point though. You know what I'm wondering we can do? What if we could just do a gradient? Like instead of all this nonsense. Let me just see something here. What if we can just do... Oh my God, where did that other one go? What did I have on the other one? Let's do this. Let's do a gradient from like red to... We'll do HSV and we'll do like red. Maybe like a red color. All the way to the other side to like this color. I don't know. Something like that. And then we need mapping. Save this as liquid glass real quick because we'll do a few examples because I don't have anywhere to be right now and I love being free. I don't know if you guys have that feeling too, but like I don't really have anywhere to be, so I'm just gonna be doing this for a second. I want to see something here. Let's try this. It's kind of cool looking. It's not really what I'm going for, but just try a couple things here. I'm gonna compress it. Let's try this. See, I feel like this is kind of what I'm going for, but around the whole thing. Let's try this. Nope. It's kind of what I'm going for, though. It's kind of like getting close to what I wanted, but not exactly. Apple has its flat back side. All right, so let's try this. Let's try, let's just do the liquid glass without all the dispersion stuff. So I'm gonna delete this shader real quick. And we're just going to do a regular old glass BSDF. And we'll keep the default. We'll just do like 1.5. That's totally fine. And then I think I'm going to mix it with a glossy shader, because I feel like theirs is very, very glossy. Thoughts on that? I feel like it's like very glossy with zero roughness. And then we'll do the for now, or we'll do just like layer weight, whatever. For now. And we'll do a color ramp. Whoa, color ramp sliding all over the place. There we go. All right, let's try something like that, perhaps. That's pretty cool. I feel like that's kind of close. Why does it like not feel as crisp though? I think maybe it's the shape of the object itself. Yeah, because it's like this. Let's try, like you said, like the flat version of it. Let's try something like this. It just has like a bevel. Like a really like sharp bevel around all the corners. Object apply scale. We'll just select the corners here. Or sorry, the edges rather. Just bevel those. Something like that perhaps. And then we'll add an additional bevel on top of that. But it'll be much less. It'll be like, I don't know, like something like that. I feel like that's kind of like the vibe they have. I'll just copy the material over, hide this one. See what that looks like. No. Is that kind of the vibe? I don't know. Maybe it's not. What's the IOR on this? 1.5? I just want to see what 2 looks like. 2 like really stretches it out. But I feel like this looks pretty decent. I don't know. Not like 100% entirely happy with it. Let me try just the glass. I feel like it should be reversed like a magnifying glass. I think you're right. You know what? Let's do this. You guys are going to laugh at my modeling techniques here, but let me go ahead and convert this to a mesh, add a cube, scale it down, and I'm just going to cut the bottom of this off. Like I'm going to do a Boolean operation real quick. So I just wanted to see. Yeah, like that. Just want to see what that looks like. Did that help at all? There we go. Now it's like really, really close to the surface. I feel like that's kind of close. Still not getting that like warped effect. I'm looking at theirs right now. Theirs is like super, super rounded. Like super rounded. Does liquid glass mean it has an IOR similar to water? Maybe. That would be 1.33. There it is. Compared to 1.45. You can kind of see the difference like right here in the edge where like the E extends off. This is 2. Too much. 1.33 and 1.45. 1.33 kind of works because I feel like it extends it out to the edge there. I guess also the normal or the like we could remake. Let me subdivide it more. Oh. Before, after, before, after, before, after. I'm looking at the difference here. It's hard to say. Man, that's tough. That's tough to say. This looks cool though. Also, let me see, do they have any colored? No, they don't, but that's okay. All right, either way, maybe this is something to revisit because this is a cool one. I'm surprised it hasn't been covered yet, unless maybe it has. I just haven't seen it. But like really, at the end of the day, where's that original example that I had? There it is. Come on, where are you, dude? That's not it. There it is. Yeah, this is the original example. This looks cool though. They really like, maybe it really just is like a special material they developed. So cool looking. Rather than flat. It has no physics properties of glass, but it can morph and shapeshift, thus liquid. I feel like the shapes are like lenses. Yeah, they kind of are like lenses. I kind of agree with that. So to get this like effect where they kind of like break apart like that, you can do that with you could probably do that with geometry nodes, or you could just do meta balls. Meta ball. Again, you guys probably like saw this coming, right? Like if I duplicate this, right, you can kind of see how it like breaks apart like that. I would like to do meta ball, but I want to try this plane. This is actually kind of close to what we're looking for already. Why is it? There we go. Meta balls are weird though. Hold on. Let's do a plane. Scale it down. I wonder, can you scale it on? Oh, you can. You can scale it on the Z. But if you apply the scale, what happens? That's weird. Kind of get that effect. And then you can adjust the resolution. That's cool. Give it that glass material. Oops, wrong glass material. Oh my god. This thing's going to drive me crazy. There we go. All right, there we go. There you go. There's your kind of like glass joining effect, more or less. I mean, that's probably the approach I would take to get this done in Blender. It's really hard to get this in geometry nodes. There is a way, but it's hard to do. You need a dynamic liquid in geometry nodes like liquid bottle capsule. No, not that I'm aware of currently. Concave, yeah, yep. So not currently, you can't currently do that. Although I have seen like liquid solvers. This is pretty cool. Look at that. Look at that. That is awesome. So since there's nothing going on, let's try to recreate this in Blender, because the way that you would do this is you would be able to, oh, this is a tough one. You would have to take two objects and like merge them together. So let me, just bear with me. I'll show you how we would do this. I'll save this though. Let's just say we had the cube. I'll subdivide it. And then I would just duplicate it, go to geometry nodes, new geometry nodes, drag the other cube in here, join geometry. So you would basically just join these two together, okay? And then you would, let me just make sure they're overlapping. All right, so let's say they're overlapping like this. You would then do merge by distance. Wait, why is it not joining these together? What's going on here? Oh, do I have to hide this? Hold on. That's weird. Doesn't want to do it? Do I have to realize this? No, it's not an instance. No, I don't want a collection. I want object info. That's probably why it's being weird. Let's try that. And that. And I want both of these, dog. Hold on. Why is it being weird? Relative? Yo, bro. What's up with that? Every now and then, like, geometry nodes just, like, makes me want to throw my computer against the wall. Real talk, though. Can you mimic liquid in geonodes like glass in a bottle? Oh, I already answered that. This is going to drive me crazy, so let me just try something real quick. I'm gonna duplicate this cube, and I'll just do this. Let's do this. Join geometry, merge by distance, connected, all. Here, let me just try something. Let me just make sure that these two cubes are here. Cube 1, cube 2, relative, group input. What am I doing wrong here? Am I tripping, or is this like not working? Let me try this again. Sometimes it's okay to restart. Let me try, I'll just try a sphere, and I'll try another sphere, and then I'll just add a single vert, and we'll create everything on the single vert. That's fine. Geometry nodes, blah, blah, blah. Give me the sphere. Give me this sphere. join them together, and output that. Relative. There we go. Now I think it's working. Okay, now if I do merge by distance, let's also, you have to bring one of these closer together. Here we go. Okay, so if I start merging them by distance, oh, I gotta hide this one too. All right, so here's what it looks like if you merge by distance, all right? So at this point, you would do subdivision surface, right? And then, why is it not working? It doesn't seem to be working like the way that I want it to, and I don't know why. But anyway, metaballs are probably better anyway for that specific purpose. I've seen people create fake liquid in geonodes. Yeah, well, you can kind of like simulate waterfall or like particles falling that like act like a liquid. I have seen a few examples of that before, but overall, like liquid glass wise, I feel like we got kind of close to the look. In metaballs, let me just look. There's got to be another way to do that though. I guess you know what you might be able to do. Might be able to do like a shrink wrap modifier on two shapes. I don't know how well that would work. Let me delete this nonsense here. I guess you could do like, oh my god, could do like a cube, and then you could do maybe a cube that has like a longer part like this, and then you could shrink wrap around both of them. All right, we'll do shrink wrap on this. Shrink wrap, deform, shrink wrap to this. Did it work? I think it actually did. But then what if you take this guy and you extend it like this? Did the shrink wrap actually work? I think it actually did work. But the shrink wrap modifier would need to be like, it would need to have like a remesh or at least a subdivision surface. On surface, outside surface, above surface. Nearest surface point, project, nearest vertex. It's not giving me that result that I want. I wish it was a little more like fluid. I'm sure there's a way to do it though. Have you tried WOMP 3D? I've seen people create fake liquid in geonodes. Yeah. Yep. WOMP 3D. Yeah, I have seen all their stuff. Their stuff is really cool too. All right. What was I doing? Okay, nearest vertex, target normal project. Oh, here we go. Hold on a second. That looks kind of good. There we go. Starting to get somewhere here. Okay, okay. And then, boom. That needs to be, the offset needs to be a little greater. And then if you go back to here and you move this, look at that. That's kind of cool. Shrink wrap modifier is like pretty special, but could you do this in geonodes? I don't know. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Overall, it's pretty cool. I feel like I'm just like going off on a random tangent here. Like as much as I want to create the liquid glass, like it's also kind of a pain. Look at that. Meet liquid glass. Yeah. I mean, it is a pretty cool vibe. Like Apple does a great job with their like visualizations. Especially with like the frosted glass look. It's funny because I might be getting a new phone today or like tomorrow. That looks so cool. Like this is a cool one too. Just like the way it like warps everything. It's a vibe. Let's see what else they got. I think you see the classic picture of people like swiping down. I feel like smooth merging is hard to achieve in polygon model setting. SDF works better, easier setup. Yeah. Some of this stuff is so cool. Let's see. Starting to get tired, guys, so I'll probably hop off soon. But I feel like we had a pretty successful live stream. Like, oh, that's interesting. Look at the way it warps that. So cool. Whoa. Liquid glass. That's cool. Lighting has a lot to do with it too, you know, like making it look like that. Is there a big difference between liquid glass and old glass morphism style? I would say that there kind of is, but like this is like glass morphism here. Like if you look at this, like the way that this is, I would say that's glass morphism. And really all that is just a glass BS. I mean, if we wanted to recreate this in Blender, it's kind of like a glass BSDF with like a high roughness, you know. Like we could recreate that. Let's just let's go to unsplash.com real quick. Let's just get a picture of a mountain or whatever. Mountain, I did not spell that right, but it works. Oh, I can't download that image because I don't have access. Okay. Maybe I didn't want that image. How about that? Where we got See, like, this is my problem, guys. I could spend an hour trying to find the image that I want. I kind of like this image. Let's go with, oh, it's protected too. Are you kidding me, Unsplash? You've changed, bro. You know what? I'm going to pexels.com. How about that? I don't need you anymore. Oh, look at that. Free download. Click and download. Easy money. All right. Let's go ahead. Add this in real quick. Add image, mesh plane, downloads, scroll down, and boom. And then I'll just add something on top of this. I'll just add a cube. Okay. All right. This will be our like glass morphism thing. Just go ahead and do something like this. Object, apply, scale, shade smooth. And then all you have to do in order to make this look like glass is, of course, adjust the material. Add a new material, glass BSDF. And there it is. Like that's kind of more or less what we just looked at. And then obviously like the thinner it is, the easier it's going to be to like look through. But that's really it, guys. If you're looking for that like very slight like glass morphism, like that's literally it. Yeah, I guess it is a way for them to do that, huh? Now that's really glass morphism right there. Let's go to the color management, exposure, and high contrast. There it is, guys. Let's make one of them like a different color. Doesn't really work with another color as well. But you get the idea. That's glass morphism for you. I mean, more or less, that is kind of what we were looking for, right? I feel like that's pretty much it. Now, if you wanted to create like some variation in this and like some warpage to the glass, you could do that. I actually have a custom shader that I made that's basically more or less this exact same thing. Let me see if I can find it. Not trying to sell you guys anything, but I want to see if I can find it because I believe, let's see, Gumroad, frosted glass. Here it is. Is this it? Glass Pro pack. Yeah. So this was a shader I developed. So I actually made like, again, not trying to sell you guys on anything, but this is a shader I made with different presets. This is like the frosted preset. This is like the realistic glass preset. You have scratched glass. You can kind of see the scratches on the glass. sea glass, which is a little more of like a, it's kind of like a warped glass. Stylized. This is like, it kind of looks like water. It's a little different. What else do we have? Dusty glass. This has like some dust particles on it. Cracked glass. This is a fun one using like Voronoi texture and stuff like that. Basic glass, and then demo mode, which is like, this is like you can adjust it on your own. But you can see like there's like some warpage in the glass and there's some like variation. So it's pretty cool. But this is like that classic frosted look. If you're looking for like the classic frosted look, that's it, right? This was a fun, I remember I used to love like working on stuff like this, like shader nodes. Let me see if I can pull up the shader nodes. Okay, here's the shader node setup for those wondering. So I know, because I know a lot of people are like, you didn't make this, show me the nodes. These are the nodes. All right, so this is the nodes right here. Yeah, let's see what else we got. Have any other projects? Blueprint shader, you guys probably seen that. Oh yeah, so who was asking about ArcViz earlier? This was my draft lines project. This was a fun one. Watch this crash my computer though. Oh, I joked about it and now it's about to happen. So this is like kind of for ArcViz. This is Eevee, but I'll show you the node setup for this one. So this one, I did not realize how many nodes this actually was, but here it is. This one was basically, I don't even know how to explain this. This allows you to like create lines around like architecture or like any type of structure. It can really be anything, but this one was fun. You can see, kind of like see the idea here. Basically just follows like the edges. You can adjust the line opacity. You can adjust the, where is it? The amount of lines, angled lines, randomness. Where's the original object? Oh, here we go. Wireframe opacity, object opacity. There we go. So if you want to bring like the object itself back, you can. Maybe you want the detailed line color to be like white. And then you can also adjust like the line length as well. So if you want like the lines to only come out just a little bit, you can do that. And then you can adjust like the color of the object. Maybe you want it to be like a darker blue, something like that, right? Maybe that's the vibe you're looking for. Just go ahead and do that. Yeah, this looks cool. You can also adjust, like I said, like if you don't want X and Y lines, if you only want the Z lines, there you go. If you only want the Y lines, there you go. Only want the X lines and the Y lines, there you go. Or maybe you just want the angled lines, because there are small little angled lines on there too. Yep. You can adjust the wireframe color. Maybe you want like a light blue, kind of fits the theme. Wireframe opacity. This is like, if you don't want the wireframe at all, I like it kind of like a little bit subtle. Something like, why is the opacity slider not working? Oh, the thickness of the wireframe. Oopsies. There we go. I feel like that looks pretty good. But this is just an example of like how you could use this shader too. Let's see what else they got. Oh, bounding box. Yep. There's a lot here. But anyway, guys, I gotta go. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I can't wait to live stream again. I'm hoping next time we can cover another topic that's like similar to this. But if you did enjoy this, please drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to CG Cookie, check out my channel. And until next time, guys, have a fantastic day. Thank you so much